Good evening, friends. Once more, happy to join this small group Thursday evenings under the banner of JK Study Circle Indore. And all of us know in our hearts that these topics are of special interest to anybody who is exploring the mysteries of living. Today, we have chosen the topic of freedom in education, by which we do not mean the education in schools and colleges only. Therefore, we have even added an expression freedom in the context of lifelong learning for people who long back passed from various schools and colleges, who may be in their 60s or 70s, also need to understand the place of freedom for their own learning and for facilitating learning in others. Freedom is much misunderstood in the world in general. There are statements like spare the rod and spoil the child. The rod to punish has been given such an important place. If you spare the rod, that means if you don't punish the child, you will spoil the child, is the meaning of those statements. But as we think deeply on life, we find that fear is actually a dangerous thing. There has to be freedom from fear, and no one should imagine that when there is no fear, it is all about having so called freedom to do anything. It's not about licentiousness. People are afraid that if people will take wrong advantage of things or they do not work properly. All kinds of apprehensions like this have generally made fear an essential component of all relationships. We cause fear in others and we live in fear of others. But here we are going to take a look at the importance of there being no fear. Therefore, from my angle of view, this evening's topic, freedom, is no different from freedom from fear or absence of fear. What is wrong if there is a little fear introduced, instilled into the minds of students? Someone asks. Fear, when we examine carefully, is highly likely to bring about hypocrisy, hypocrisy. People out of fear would pretend to be something in front, but because their desires and fancies are very much active, behind your backs, behind the backs of the teachers or administrators, people will do whatever they want to do. So don't blame them for being hypocrites. They are made hypocrites by your lifting the stick. Rather than talking to them, rather than bringing them to the discussion room, you have just said, do this and I will punish you, and so on. Even in relations between husbands and wives, there is fear. There is a lot of thinking. My wife should not know this. My husband should not know this, and so on. So, as I said before, human beings, even in their 60s or 70s, live a double life. One thing in front of others and another in their privacy. And that is because they were not given proper opportunity to understand themselves. They were given very little time and were told, if you do it differently from what we are asking you to do, you will be punished. Or if you do exactly as what we wanted you to do, you will be rewarded. So, this business of reward and punishment, as the expression goes, this business of carrot and stick, giving a carrot, I guess, to some animal is symbolic of rewarding the person for doing exactly as we have told that person to do. And stick is symbolic of punishment. This carrot and stick has sad limitations and terrible harm that takes place to the psyche of people that are involved. As you and I discuss aspects of life and especially the way the self operates, especially the issue of living in spontaneity, in naturalness, living in abandon. Abandon is when you let go of all kinds of complexes or all kinds of inhibitions, all kinds of pretending, and so on. We are interested in living a transparent life. We don't want to pretend, but then one of the major factors which makes us pretend is the lack of freedom. Sometimes there is really a lack of freedom, and some other times we imagine that there is no freedom. We are not assertive enough to ask the other person, do you mind if I wear a different kind of dress? We believe or we imagine that all of them are wearing one kind of dress, and if I don't wear that kind of dress, I may be taken to task. Half the time that may not be true. Therefore, this quality or component of emotional intelligence, assertiveness, is also part of this matter. Can we be assertive? I don't mean aggressive. Can we be assertive rather than remaining passive in our own imagination? Many a time, gentle assertiveness and talking over to other people clears the air. Friends, you and I, who have been inspired by the teachings of Krishnamurti, fully know how important it is to empty our consciousness of all hurt, of all fear, of all baggage. And that emptying the consciousness of old baggage is impossible if there is fear. Only in an atmosphere of freedom one can look at the baggage very attentively, and being aware of the baggage that one is carrying, one can facilitate the dropping away of the baggage. I will touch upon one more point before I conclude my sharing, as I have two very good friends here, Milind More and Harshad Parekh. I myself am eager to get a few points from their angles of view too. The point that I will add now before winding up is, how do we handle the issue of students or colleagues or people older even to us misusing freedom? Generally, that fear of the freedom being misused makes us go so heavy on do's and don'ts. The answer to that is obviously being open to begin with from our side. If we are open and we do not shut our eyes to something going wrong, if we are down to earth, if we neither overestimate our abilities nor shrink in some kind of low self-esteem, if we sort out our own inner conflicts, then the energy will come in us. We can find the energy in us to talk to those people who might want to misuse the freedom. In other words, giving freedom to others or giving freedom to ourselves in no way is to be confused with some kind of wanton way of living. Live as you like, live, as though nothing matters. No, that is not the idea. In fact, freedom carries with it tremendous responsibility. And when properly understood, freedom is such a blessing. To have the freedom to do something or not to do something is a great responsibility, and when understood properly, it's a joyous responsibility. How nice it is that we can choose to say something or not, to do something or not. How nice it is to have it in our own hands. And why should we believe or why should we imagine we don't have the intelligence? If we think we don't have the intelligence, we need to be told by X or Y, we need to be shown the path by A or B. We should question that presumption. Why do we think we don't have the intelligence? And by submitting to somebody's authority, submitting to somebody's guidance, if we imagine that we will blossom, we will open up, that could be a contradiction in terms. For on one hand, you want to open up, and on the other hand, you want to ask everybody, or not everybody, you want to ask somebody, if I may put it in a certain expression, you want to ask somebody, tell me whether it is day or night. What prevents you from looking outside and seeing for yourself? Just as it is easy for yourself to see whether it is day or night, it should be possible for you to see whether a certain thought in you is selfish or selfless, whether there is a vested interest or your thought is free of such vested interest, whether something is just a shadow of the past or there is some objective truth in it. So, I would like to say that freedom is a responsibility, a joyous responsibility, a privilege to ourselves and to others. And when more and more of us enjoy and take this responsibility, there will be a chance for everyone to live in greater transparency. When everything is transparent, not because of fear of punishment, but because of a certain awakening in us. If awakening is too big a word, a certain awareness, a certain down to earth understanding. Everyone should realize that if I deceive people, well, it can't go far. As who was that? Abraham Lincoln or somebody had said, you may deceive one man all the time, or you may deceive all people one time, but you cannot deceive all people all the time. So to live a deceptive life is foolhardy, is so stupid. We must stop living a deceptive life. A deceptive life is a burden on us. It is such a heavy burden in our psychology. All of us want freedom, and the beauty of the whole topic is the way to freedom is also freedom. Through freedom, you arrive at freedom. That seems to be a discovery for us as we examine this possibility. Otherwise, we live in conceptual knowledge, we live in beliefs, we live in some second hand information, and we do injustice to our own life. Therefore, not only in school and college education, for students or among teachers or among the principal and such role holders and teachers in all relationships in an educational center and in lifelong learning till our last breath. If we could get this skill of operating in freedom and facilitating freedom in others and sorting out the possible sidetracking through dialogue, through discussion, through meeting with life face to face, then this would be such a blessing. Let me pause here, thanking all of you. I invite now one of the other two to take up as the organizers would say now who should speak next. Thank you again.
Thank you, Chidananji. No words to say thanks. May I request Harsat sir, Harsat Parekh sir to say something?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are you able to hear my voice?
Yeah, yes,
Oh,
sir.
okay. Thank you, Chidananji. And this education is a very interesting topic. And I have spent my life into mostly Krishnamurti schools, more than half of my life. And um, I like to say that the education actually starts right from the birth, and our parents, if they are very good, then we grow up well. But if we are neglected in the childhood, parents are very busy, they don't have time, then it affects the development. And so parents are the first teachers. And then when students come to school, they come at a age of, like in Rishi Valley, at the age of 8. And then by that time, I feel that they may have got already conditioned. Each human being, I feel that comes not at the birth itself with certain qualities, certain sanskara. As we can see, Krishnamurti was quite different from childhood, and his mind used to be vacant, whereas his brother was different. His all family members were different. So each human being comes with certain qualities at the time of the birth, and then the environment in which we live also affects us. And so it is very important to have a good environment at home and in the school for a proper development of the potential which human beings have. Because education, it means to draw out whatever goodness and other qualities, love, beauty. So that's why Krishnaji says, without goodness and love, one is not educated. And he also says, parents and teachers are to be educated too, because uh, parents are also conditioned, teachers are also conditioned, and if they are not really free, then they cannot create freedom in students. And teaching is the highest profession, which Krishnamurti said. And I also feel that the future of humanity depends on the quality of education. And if the education is good, people coming out from schools and colleges, they will be very happy and clear, and they will create a happy society. So teaching is the highest profession. Education is the best friend also. And there have been very great educators in India like Rabindranath Tagore or Abdul Kalam and Vivekanand and many, uh, Radhakrishnan. But Krishnamurti was a different kind of teacher, I feel. But let me tell you a teacher about my own experience as a student. I was not interested in studies up to the sixth standard, and I used to sit at the last bench in the classroom, and a big boy was pinching me, bothering me, and generally students, if they are not interested, they sit on the last bench and they are not attentive. And I was not attentive of what the teachers were talking about. And I was afraid to tell the teacher that this big boy was bothering me. So a teacher once noticed that this boy was bothering me. So the teacher said, "Why don't you come and sit on the first bench in the classroom?" And so I started sitting on the first bench, and I was very attentive, and I became the best student in the class starting from sixth standard onward. And then when I came to seventh standard, after 6 months, I was promoted to eighth standard. And then after another 6 months, promoted to ninth standard. And I still continue to do well. So this happened because of one teacher noticed something and he corrected something and which changed the direction of my life, and I begin to do very well. So a teacher sometimes can make a great impact on the life of students if the teacher is very kind, very aware, knows how to help. And then, of course, the other teacher, which I like to, and I used, and by birth, maybe I was quite different. I used to read many books by Ramakrishna, Vivekanand, Gandhiji, and all Nehru, and many religious, spiritual teachers. But though I enjoyed reading all these things, when I went to America and it was a different culture and it was a great shock. So all this learning, bookish learning, did not help me much to face that kind of conditioning with which I was not aware, like being a Hindu or Indian. And only when I went to America and after reading Krishnamurti, I became aware that I am a human being and I am not a Hindu or an Indian. And this conditioning, it prevents us from being really free to look, to listen, to learn. And Krishnamurti's teachings made me look at the deeper level within myself to come in direct touch with myself, how problems were coming into existence. And that also made life very interesting, enjoyable. And so I consider Krishnamurti as the greatest teacher who came in my life, who made me look. And that is what a teacher does. A teacher doesn't teach, a teacher tells something, and if the student is sensitive, he begins to learn by observing himself, by observing nature, by observing other human beings. And so I found that in Krishnamurti's teachings, he's not teaching, he's describing the state in which all humanity lives with fear, with anger, jealousy, loneliness, boredom, and so on. And the real education which Krishnamurti feels is not learning about the subjects only, various subjects which are necessary, like physics, history, mathematics, all these subjects we need to learn, but much more important is learning about our own inner world where many things are going on and we are not observing, and we are going round and round into thinking and trying to solve the problems without having looking clearly at our own mind. So uh, what the education, what Krishnaji wanted from Rishi Valley or Krishnamurti schools, to have a mind which is free, a global outlook, looking at the whole world, feeling that in me is the humanity and I am the world and the observer is the observed. That
नहीं
not
मैं कभी दिल तो तेरे 50 तरीके से बोल ममता भी आ सकती है अपन तीनों भी घूम सकते हैं
so not understanding intellectually that observer is the observed or I am the world, but a real feeling of it. And that can come only when there is freedom. Freedom from, of course, fear and all other problems, but all these problems are coming from the self, from what we call ego. And this self is coming from thinking. So if a person really wants to go at the deepest level to understand himself, to understand humanity, understand students, teachers, colleagues, politicians, or religious teachers, one has to understand oneself. And self knowledge is the highest knowledge. Means being in touch with ourselves. And that is what I learned from Krishna ji. And about what Chidanand ji talked about, how to deal with students who take freedom not sincerely, because with freedom goes responsibility and discipline. With and discipline not imposed by teachers, by the system, but discipline which coming from within. Like the word disciple, it means a student. And discipline is the highest characteristic of a disciple or a student. A student who doesn't have discipline, the discipline coming from within, then one cannot learn and the life is wasted. But how to deal with students who don't have discipline, who are very mischievous, who don't listen? So If a teacher is gentle and very clear, a teacher who doesn't get angry, he can talk with the student. If not in the classroom, he can call the students outside the classroom and talk with what is the problem. Is it the student is mischievous? Is it because he doesn't understand the subject? Then if a teacher is good, he can tell the student, if you don't understand the subject, you can come outside later on, maybe in the weekend or in the holidays or any time after school hours, and the teacher is ready to teach. And this has happened many times in my classrooms that students, when they don't understand something in the classroom, and when you give attention, personal attention outside the class, they begin to understand and then they begin to enjoy learning. So a teacher can help the student if a teacher is not upset with the behavior. Because generally, what happens, teachers, when they go to the classroom, they already have certain idea in their mind how much portion of the syllabus they want to cover. And if they are not able to cover that portion, they become very upset. But I never did that. I was never interested in saying that I must cover certain portion. And I was able to cover the portion much before the time limit. And I was going very slowly, systematically teaching physics and mathematics, allowing the student the time to ask questions and so on. So this teaching of subjects is not very difficult. It can be taught without much difficulty and without much effort if the state of the mind of the teacher is very gentle, very clear, affectionate, and then students also respond to that. But sometimes if students don't understand and take the advantage, because when I joined Rishi Valley School, I was very gentle and students were making a lot of noise. And one student came to me and said, "Sir, you have to be strict because if you are not strict, then they will make a lot of noise." But it was very difficult for me to be strict. So I used to find my own way to talk with students outside the classroom. And sometimes if I am not able to um, deal with the student, I can take help of other teachers like a housemaster or a class teacher or headmaster or principal or a group of teachers. There is a whole systematic way of going about without getting upset and without getting angry with the student. So maybe I have said enough thing because this education to me, it goes on even after student complete their education, even after they complete PhD, and it is learning every day. And the real learning comes when we face some problem in relationship. And first, instead of saying that the problem is somewhere else, one has to examine oneself that is the problem there. If I get angry or upset when somebody says something unpleasant, then I have to examine that also. Why do I get angry? Is there not a different way of learning, relating with people? So that kind of learning it really helps throughout the life until we die. And this kind of learning is missing in most schools, even maybe in Krishnamurti schools, because students, even after coming from Krishnamurti schools, some of them, they start drinking, smoking. And so it also depends not only on the school environment. The school environment is very good, I would say, in Rishi Valley and other Krishnamurti schools, but one has to take the right advantage of the environment. And those who get carried away by the society and they want to become somebody by hook or crook, or by dishonesty or working too hard, punishing themselves, then they may suffer. So learning is about ourselves, and that is to be free from the problems created by our own thinking, and which can go on day after day until we die. So I have covered freedom, education, and lifelong learning. Milind, you can speak now. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Actually, I would begin with, it's a privilege to be listening and learning with both Chidananji and Harshadji. Both of them have been coming to the place where I am presently at Sahyadri School for a long time. And I must express my gratefulness to both of them for sharing a lot of learnings about Krishnamurti teachings and life in general. While I was making a transition from military life to the life in a Krishnamurti school. As you all know, that military life is all about non-freedom,
Mm.
authority, fear, all the things which Chidananji and Harshadji have talked about. And from that state of mind and training to state of mind where one could look at the educational processes and of course the life has been a great learning for me. And I'm grateful to both of them, and it's a great privilege to be with both of them today, and of course all of you here. As Chidananji remarked about fear and uh, relevance of freedom in an educational process, and this is what we see. I mean, at the ground level in any educational institution, if you look today, it is all about memorization and mechanical repetition of knowledge, subjects, and so on. For me, as I see today, education is especially at a school level where I am, is about joys of childhood to begin with. You know, how is it that the childhood can enjoy the joys of just being a child? That's the first thing. And and while enjoying or while seeing the joys, can one also discover oneself? So it basically involves the joys of discovering oneself. I think that is at the core of uh, educational process, or knowing oneself. Now, as to why is it so important? I mean, this process of discovery, uh, self-discovery, and I think this is at the core of even Krishnaji's teachings, where he's talked about awakening of intelligence in the light of discovering oneself. Now, uh, you see that, I mean, we all have experienced this, when there is a joy of discovering something, the energy is there. The energy automatically comes in, and that energy itself leads to forging of certain tools and instruments to take it further, and lending itself to further self-discovery. Now, that is the basic process as one experiences in one's daily life. Can that quality, that joy of discovery, be brought into a child's life at school is a question for every educator. Now, this discovery or the self-discovery, what we say now, it can only take place, when there is something in existence. I mean, you can discover something which is in existence. uh, you cannot discover anything which doesn't exist. Now, what exists as we see with the things around, or in the context of what both the speakers have talked about, is about discovering the thing which is in existence. And practically what we see around is that it is covered with many layers and layers of conditioning, knowledge. You see the time and centuries and millennium of activities of human mind. So the actual real thing is quite hidden. So isn't the educational process about removing these layers and trying and discovering something which is at the core of it? So what does it involve then? It involves perhaps non-identification with these layers. Perhaps it involves seeing that one is very careful and one is aware that one is not identifying with what is a fact in front of you. Because in our daily life, the fact generally comes with layers of conditioning. So can one be aware about it in this joy of learning with a curious mind? So basically, I think this whole process of self-discovery involves putting things away rather than putting things in. You know, it is not an accumulative process. It cannot be an accumulative process. It has to be a negative process. So I would say a good teacher should be actually has a negative role to play in pointing out the unlayering of facts. Now, this pointing out, it demands a lot of sensitivity. Sensitivity at the physical level, at the emotional level, at the mental level. And I think it is very important that when we look at this whole process of discovering as a process of non-identification, then it is important that while the fact may be physical in nature or non-physical in nature, it is important that the whole psychological process doesn't get rooted in something. You see, can we arrive at, or can we have an understanding or a perception wherein we see that one doesn't get psychologically rooted to anything? Can one be on the move? Isn't this one of the basic aspects of education? So these are the thoughts which come to my mind when I explore about the aspects of uh, education. I mean, on a campus like any Krishnamurti school or any residential school, there are umpteen number of opportunities which come up at the activity level. And I find there is a great joy among children when, especially when they are dealing with something to begin with at the physical nature. It could be the relationship with water, for example, or it could be relationship with, say, the electricity that we use, or it could be relationship with the food. It could be relationship with the waste that we generate. So every activity gives an opportunity for unlayering things. I mean, for example, aspects of waste management actually leads to discovery of how much waste am I actually generating on a day-to-day basis, and then leading to question of why am I generating it? So can I make it more simple? So these are the questions which can be explored at a school level with the child. And here the teacher has a great role in basically, I think, indicating it rather than instructing it. So I think a true education is rather suggestive in nature rather than instructive. So can one look at it in that way? And when that happens, or when that perception happens, then isn't it a lifelong learning? I mean, the whole way of looking at things, the whole way of seeing things, the whole perception is then uh, leads to alertness of things around you. And perhaps it may lead to also questioning the psychological fixed points that eventually, as human beings, we find ourselves getting fixed up about. Perhaps there's a possibility of seeing that they don't remain fixed. So I think these are thoughts which I immediately see in my immediate context of the school in which I am. And I do see the joys on a children's face when they discover something like this. And then I see an energy of a different quality, which which has no limits. I mean, which is not based on uh, any past knowledge. uh, it's just a pure joy of wonder and awe. And perhaps is this what people called as, you know, seeing without self? I mean, that's a question for me. I do not know. But when you see such expressions on a child's face, there is a great beauty in it. So I think I'll stop here. It's uh, and if maybe if there are any questions, or if Chidananji or Harshitji would like to say something, maybe we can.
Yeah. Uh, Chidananji, do you like to say something?
Actually, I have a question for you.
Hmm.
You made a mention of the observer is the observed in some context. I slightly did not get that point. How did you
Yeah.
connect that remark?
Yeah.
How did you connect that to today evening's topic?
Yeah. Okay. um, when when I started reading Krishnamurti's book, first book, which was The Flight of the Eagle,
Hmm.
and he was describing all the problems which humanity is facing,
Hmm.
and he was saying that no matter where you have lived, human beings have suffered from fear, anger, jealousy, loneliness. And so he was saying this is not your problem, it is the problem of the humanity. And before, I was so much involved with my own problem that I was not able to look around. But when I read what Krishnamurti said, then I said, oh, I am not the only one who is having all these problems. Krishnaji says that humanity has suffered from thousands of years this problem. And so I begin to look around, and I found that I was lonely, of course, because in a different culture. But then when I begin to look, I found Americans were lonely in their own country. There's no happiness in the family. People are bad habits, no relationship, drugs, sex, and all kinds of problems. So then I verified that yes, Krishnamurti says that the problems are not yours. It's the humanity has suffered, everybody. And then he was pointing out from where do these problems come? And he was saying that these problems come from thinking. And from thinking comes the sense of I or me. And then this me tries to change thought. And there's a duality between the two. And all our psychological problems are because of this duality between thinker and thought. And I found something in this. So how can I verify this? That problems are arising from thinking only. So if I really want to verify it, I have to be very, very silent, alone, at least in the beginning, to look how these thoughts arising. And I found when I was really intensely trying to look at the beginning of a thought, there, there was nothing. And it was um, a new kind of state which I experienced. And I felt that, yes, when there is no thinking, there is no sense of I, there are no problems. And so this observing myself, what was happening, that became very interesting. because once I experience the beauty of it, then every time my mind will be going inward and looking at it. And in that, there was a direct learning. And then even I feel that one doesn't need to read much because the book of our own life we can read as it is being written every day, and there is a direct learning. So this started happening, which also began to change my body and brain also. And I could start writing letters to Krishnaji. And like about the observer is the observed is true in a sense when you look at the anger arising, you are that anger. It's not, it's you are looking at yourself. That means observer is the observed in that sense also. But there is also a state of mind which one may come across when you are looking at nature and there is no sense of I, and it's a wonderful state. In that state also a kind of a harmony exists between the observer and the observed. There is only observation. There is no observer, no observed, but a clear looking. And so Krishnaji is talking about that. That is real beauty, where we can see things without any images, because he was asking, can we look at a tree or a human being without any images? And the first time when I looked at Krishnamurti, it was like that, without any image, and it was a wonderful feeling. Even I did not talk, how are you or nothing, just shook hands with him in California. And it was wonderful. I understood what relationship means when there is no sense of I separate from what is observed.
Thank
So
you.
you don't feel that, oh, he's a great man and I am a little person. How can I go to him? Not like, so that creates division.
Right.
Okay, I've finished. Yeah.
Great.
Mm.
Well, I wish to leave now as there is another function where I have to join, but I must say that I truly enjoyed the comments made by both of you, Harshadji and Milindji. Actually, I wanted to ask some question to Milindji, but I will ask him another time. And I want to pick from him, especially his experiences in the administrative, because he is not only an educator, but he is an administrator handling a lot of projects in Sahyadri. So I look forward to another opportunity. For now, because of Shivratri, please excuse me, I need to take leave. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mm. In the school, Sayadri, Rishi Valley, there is a time given to students in the evening to look at the sunset, and they remain very silent. And many students enjoy looking at the sunset, and there is learning happens in a indirect way, not talking about that. And there was one girl, this I heard from Uma Akka. She was the first principal of Sayadri School. And she said that one girl was looking at the clouds. Two clouds were coming very close to each other. And she thought that these two clouds will collide with each other and there will be some disturbance. But they merge very easily, the two clouds. And then she remembered that she had a problem of some conflict with another girl in the hostel. And she learned from the clouds just to merge, not to create conflict. So that kind of learning may happen in some sensitive students where they are not told anything, but they can learn from nature. Sometimes they just learn something from a teacher, and it and after many years they begin to understand something. So some seeds can be planted in students. And when I was in Rishi Valley, we used to have also dialogues, voluntary, for students who were interested in asking questions about our life, our mind, anything, And many of them were coming on their own. And I also used to take students for a walk in the evening and looking at nature, talking with them about their problems in the hostel or family and so on. So there is a lot of opportunity for students to learn if teachers and students, they can relate well with each other. Right. Okay. Any question, Anandji or Dinesh? Yes, you can ask Anandji. You have to unmute.
So when I say that I have no problem, the question is, am I living life? So
Yeah. Yes, you are living very efficiently because with problem, your energy are wasted.
but how do I understand life does not exist without problems? Life means problems.
Yeah, because I think we are got used to. It's just like sometimes I give that example of I was carrying something in my hair, maybe lots of dandruff, and one day I used shampoo, and I thought it was a hair oil, and I kept the shampoo for a whole day, and then the next day I washed my hair, and as if all those dandruffs were gone. And when I went out, I felt I had no head. It was feeling so light. So we are used to problems, and that problems makes us feel alive, but we are carrying a burden. And only when that burden goes, then we will see, oh, how wonderful it is to just look, to live, to do anything. Mm. So I think we have got habituated with many problems, and then we say it is natural, but it is not natural. There is a possibility of looking at it. If we are able to look inward, we can learn a lot. Yes.
So the question was, life doesn't exist without problems, sir.
Mhm. Yes.
There is a problem in my life. My conditioning is to escape from the problems. And Krishnamurti says, can you remain with it? When you remain with it, with what is undergoes a transformation.
Yes. Yes.
So my problem doesn't disappear. My father died. He doesn't again appear.
Mhm.
He's gone.
Yes.
He doesn't again come back to me. So
Yes.
I have found my conditioning is to escape from the sufferings and sorrows. That's my conditioning. That is what I keep doing it. But when I
Yes.
say that I have no pain in life, I want to say, am I caught in another illusion is a question.
Mhm. Yeah. Yes.
Because life does not exist without pleasures, without pain, without joy, and every other thing.
Yes. 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 Everybody goes through problems, but some people are interested in looking very deeply at the source, and some people are avoiding it. They are frightened to look. That is a difference. So as Krishnaji also says, freedom to look is at the beginning. If you are frightened and also believe that uh, we can't live without problems, or it would be a very boring life to have no problem, because sometimes students also tell me that it would be a very boring life if there will be no problem, because they imagine that it would be very boring, and they have not really felt that state where there is no problem. Then we have a lot of energy and we can do many things if there are no problems. I think many people like Buddha, Krishnamurti, many others, they were free, and that's why they were able to help some people. But the humanity cannot be changed, like the whole humanity.
I don't know about that, sir, but then why have we made K into a teacher? He said not to make him into a teacher. He said, don't listen to me. He says, can you investigate? We are not investigating. I say I have read Krishnamurti, then I understand. He said that is not the way to do it. That's the wrong way. That I'm putting the word wrong within quotes.
Mhm.
He says, can you investigate?
Yes, right.
Is there an investigation which is going on in my life is a question. Not say, I have a nice life, pleasurable life, day in and day out, and I don't look at the ugliness of life. I just avoid it. Can I see that as a question, sir?
Mhm. Yes, yes, one can do it. Then there will be no question. One will be just doing it, not asking this question.
So life is dynamic, sir. I am not. Life is dynamic, which I'm stagnating. Can I observe that as a question? That is a human problem. That is humanity. The problem with you, me, and everybody else. That's a whole problem,
Yeah.
which we call it society, which is me.
Yes. Hmm. Yes, there are tremendous problems in the world. I read every day in the newspaper, somebody is killing, some suicide, stealing, corruption. There are thousands of problems exist all over the world, even in countries where they don't have hunger or poverty. The problems created by the mind exist everywhere. But some few people who are really interested, they can really look, and so as Buddha said, there is suffering, there is a cause for suffering, there is a understanding it, and there is a freedom from it. So this is possible, yes.
So he said there was understanding and freedom. That doesn't mean there is no pain in me. The pain does not disappear.
Hmm.
If it disappears, I'm not a human being. So trying to avoid pain, can I see that it's not it's a non it's well, how do I put that? That is not the truth. The truth is there is pain.
Yes.
That's the truth.
Yes.
But I don't want to remain with that truth.
Yes.
I don't want to look at that truth.
Mm-hmm.
It hurts.
It hurts anyway, even if you don't look.
The question is, am I looking, sir?
Yeah.
We are having a dialogue, so therefore I have brought that up. The question is, we don't want to see, because when I see, I need to act, which brings me out of my comfort zone. And I'm not willing to come out of my comfort zone.
So it remains then. The problem remains. Yeah.
And the so-called education, sir, what we are talking about in schools, is it the education what we are giving to the children, or we are it's just the information they gather or accumulate to be something in life, to be a clerk, an officer, or an engineer, or a doctor, or a businessman? So is that what education means? Or education is holistic, which means uh, being a good human being, understanding what life is.
Yes.
We are only taught techniques. I'm teaching the students only techniques. I don't teach the student what life is about.
Yeah. Yeah. I do a lot because I do culture classes, and also even my physics classes. There are enough um, situations where we can talk about the energy of various kinds, and there is this psychological energy too, and how it is wasted in unnecessary conflicts. So there is a physics and metaphysics. They are very much related. So it depends on the teacher if the teacher is interested. And there are few teachers who are interested. And the environment, the nature also helps to some students. And there is no punishment, no comparison, no reward, uh, and a healthy environment, food is good. So in a way, the environment is quite good. There is silence, nature, good people. Then it depends on the sensitivity of students and teachers, what they can get out of the environment. And when Krishnamurti was alive, he was coming every year to Rishi Valley and was talking with students and teachers. So even then, there were many students, they were laughing, not listening to Krishnaji. So that is all happens too.
True, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I am a teacher in a school
Mm.
that is very limited. Can I be a student of life? Is the question, sir.
Yes, that's a very good question. Because everything which we do, even in whether it is in school or outside school, it could be a learning experience when you are traveling. And I have many traveling experience all over the world, where sometimes very difficult situation. And then how do you look at that time, when you have lost money or something like that. So learning happens all throughout life.
Can I say a few words?
Yes, sir.
Actually, I was just wondering while listening to Anandji's question about this aspect of pain and moving away from it, or running away or escaping from it, whatever way you look at it. I was just wondering, can I maybe take help of a map? When we are looking at a map, we, in my understanding, we look at it in two ways. One is when I have to move from point A to point B, when I'm seeking a direction, I look at the map in a certain way. I try to find out, which way to go from point A to point B. That is one way. The other way of looking at it is to see the whole map. So can I draw an analogy here with what Krishnaji is saying in terms of limitations of thoughts, that when we are trying to seek some direction, a thought is helpful there, going from point A to point B. But can thought be helpful when I'm trying to understand something which is in psychological domain like pain, by seeking some direction? Or will it help to see the map as a whole and see that there is it is in the nature of things that there is a limitation in seeking direction of anything which is psychological in nature. I don't know whether it will help, but I find it makes sense to me.
Mm.
It is not to mean that one has done away with all the pain and conflict in one's life, but one see this?
So the question is, can I understand there is pain in life? Life does not exist without pain. Period. In the universe itself, the entire universe, there is, there's so much of destruction which is taking place, which you may call, which it is called natural anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether by understanding the conflicts around the world, whether it will really help. What at the most may help me is to understand my own inner conflicts. That is what I can do. I have been, as I was mentioning earlier also, I being part of armed forces for a long time, I know what one human being can do or what system can do. There is very little that one can do in that sense of understanding and comprehending and stopping any conflicts as such. For this, one has to see the whole map and one's location in it, and that is what one can do. I don't think through understanding pain or understanding conflict, any destination can be reached. Because the very fact is that the thought has generated these, and if you're trying to find the way through thought process only, then it doesn't lead anywhere, because it's a vicious circle. It is a continuous circle, and one keeps moving round and round in this. And this is not just contemporary, it is happening for millennium now. So Krishnaji has pointed out at this very important aspect, that can one break this continuity, and that is where he talks about the radical revolution and not evolution. So it is a vast subject, I suppose, and I don't think we have enough time to dwell in depth into this at this moment, but this is what I can touch upon at the moment.
Yeah. We are using too much thinking to understand, but thinking cannot solve problems which are created by thinking. There is something else different than thinking, what is called awareness or silence, silent looking. That is necessary to really look clearly.
So in understanding what thinking is, probably, the other is. When I don't understand what thinking, when I say I don't want thinking, I'm caught in my conditioning, wanting and not wanting. Can I observe that it's a question? If I keep on saying I should be aware, I should perceive, all that again, I'm back to my conditioning. I'm in time. And why do I say I should not be thinking? Thinking is essential, functional. It is important.
Yes.
So there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
The moment I say something wrong, I'm back to my conditioning, right and wrong. I'm caught in that all the time.
Yes.
Yes, you're right, sir. I mean, I would just add to this is that as long as one is looking at it within the corridor of right and wrong, there is a limitation. Can one see it without any reaction? I think there is great learning in that.
I would just put it the other way around, sir. Can I see I'm reacting?
Yes, that's a very valid,
right.
Yes,
very
sir.
right question. Absolutely, I agree with you.
Yeah. Dinesh wants to ask.
No, sir, I don't have any questions today.
Okay, okay.
My observation is life is
Yeah.
full of all these things, fear, anxiety, and all that, and those are like
Hmm.
ingredients of a recipe. Uh, the important thing in my observation is the important thing is how can you get the energy of freedom, and that freedom energy is at the beginning, not in the involvement of
Yes.
in all these things. As
Right.
the Krishnamurti says, the first step is the last step. So
Yeah.
can you look and look without any image to the things,
Hmm.
and can you get the energy of freedom? That is important. If you are having the energy of freedom, you can tackle all these problems. That's what I
Right.
feel.
Yeah.
Tarunji has raised his hand for quite some time. He needs to be unmuted.
I would like to submit, we have discussed along that the problems are created by thinking and they cannot resolve those problems by thinking itself. One has to observe silently. But my experience is different. It is the focus of the thinking which leads to problem and which leads to solution. One man had said that his father is no more and it is panic and painful and it is a problem. This is the one way of thinking. The other way is that this is an inherent process of the life. Everyone suffers it. And whether this death is causing pain or my so-called in Hindi, the moh, the attachment with the father is causing the trouble. So if the focus is changed and thinking start in positive direction, it leads towards all the solutions. In normal life, in science and in many others, the thinking has created the solution. Simply observing that the holistic map, if one observes the holistic map, nothing could be understood. You
Hmm.
must be very specific where to go, where to start, where is the direction, where is these everything. So if you are not specific, the holistic view, how what it leads to, you tells the silence, what silence is mean to. जो शांति है, what peace है, it is only your mind state. Problem is also if you look problem like a problem, then it is a problem. If you are overlooking it, or if you got a different view, it will give you different feeling. The problem for one man is not same painful to the other fellows. Sometimes it is joy for the others. Keeping students silent in class is a problem for the master, not for the students and the other fellows. So problem is just a way of looking, and thinking is
I think his voice has gone.
Yeah.
Sir, my observation is neither thinking is a problem, nor the existential problems are the problem. Problem is I. If I is not there, then everything is order. What Krishnamurti says. If I is there, then everything is disorder. And his individuality is present, and because of individuality, he has to face all these things and contradictions and confusion in life. This will always be there. So if he has understand the structure of I, and if he can put it aside, then I think he can get the energy of freedom, and then things will be different. That's what I.
Yeah. But this I, it comes from thinking.
Well, I comes from the accumulation, and
Yeah.
accumulation is also a part of life, sir. Accumulation, nobody can say that I can be remain without accumulation. Accumulation will be there, but how he can remain free? If he has got a total vision, or he has understood the total structure of mind, then there is a possibility that he can remain free from the conditioning, total conditioning.
Yeah.
That's what my observation is. One has to get that maturity, or he has to rise to that maturity of beyond time and space, what he says. A state of mind which is totally
Yeah.
silent, and that silence is not absence of noise.
Yeah.
It is the
No,
source of
about,
thinking.
yes. No, many great people who have, like Kabir and other people, even Bhagavad Gita, they say many good things, but just by having a positive view, by saying that attachment leads to problem, attachment doesn't go away. There must be something else from a different way of looking, not through thinking, which can act on thinking and can solve problems. That's what I feel. Because when I was young, I used to read Bhagavad Gita and all that. But when I went to America, it did not help me. I still had many problems. It's only when I read Krishnamurti and I began to look inside very clearly, and I could be able to see clearly the creation of the problem. And then there is a freedom from the problem too, when we can see clearly. So that seeing is different than thinking.
Sir, my observation is this
Yeah.
thought is made up of intellectual thinking as well as the emotions, feelings. So one has to understand the energy in the process, and if he can go, if he can understand the energy of freedom, then perhaps there is a possibility that he can remain free.
So just to I mean, this is my observation, sir. Whether there is I or there is no I, problems exist, there is suffering.
My question to Mr. Anand is, how do you tackle suffering, sir?
So functional suffering, we have to go through it, sir. There's no way away from it. The
Yes,
point
we
is,
remain with
K
it.
is talking about psychological, the functional which turns into psychological. So that is what it is. But when with I or without I, suffering is there, pain is there, death is there. That's the point, sir. Over.
What about the psychological pain? And can you differentiate between the physical pain and psychological pain? The
When I say I
psychological grief.
don't want it, when I say I don't want it, and it becomes even more and more.
Yes, so
And
I is
then
the
I
problem,
want to
no?
escape. Huh?
Who doesn't want it? I don't want it.
That's
I
a
is the
point.
problem.
That's what psychologically it becomes a problem.
Yes.
That I psychologically becomes a problem.
As
Functionally,
long
it is
as I
required.
is, sir, as my observation is, as long as I is there, everything is a problem. Life itself becomes full of problems.
Yeah, right.
That's what I'm saying, sir. With I or without I, you have problems. That's what I have said.
So can we look at, or rather, can we look at all our discussion without making I as an entity, in the sense that whatever I am seeing, can I see it without the sense of condemning it or judging it or identifying with it? Can I first do that? Do I have the
Absolutely.
capacity to do that? If I'm able to see that, maybe the question may change then. I don't know. But the first step is perhaps to see that am I able to see it without identifying, without judging, without condemning it, without seeing pleasure and all these aspects.
Yeah.
So,
Without
Sir,
conclusion.
yes, I also think, as Arshad Farid sir said, observer is the observed. So can you look at the problems without movement of any thought in any direction? Then things may differ.
So that is someone else said, sir, observer is observed. For you and me, there is an observer, and that is what we are observing. There's a huge difference when a person, when he's talking about observe the observed, I take those words and I repeat them. But I need to understand what it is. The I is the center of the universe. Why would I let go?
So Mr.
Isn't it
So,
so?
so
I mean,
sir,
it is not a
only
so
I
easy
can
thing,
understand
sir.
that, no? So only I
Otherwise,
can understand.
sir, otherwise the whole world, everybody on the planet would have done it if it was so simple. Everybody would have done it. What's the great thing about it then?
Yeah.
Oh,
Why
indigenous
have
is
this
there.
having lived on this earth for millions of years? I mean, it is such a challenge. It is not that easy. If you and I could have done it now, probably 10,000 years back, people would have done it.
Sir, my problem is I don't want to get free from the I. I am having vested interest. I am having so many other ambitions. So why should, and it is giving me a lot of pleasure. So what I should
Absolutely.
be free from the I? That is what problem. My
Absolutely.
problem is.
Absolutely. That's my joy. That's my happiness. That's
Yes, yes.
that's my entire universe. Why would I let go?
Yes.
Yes. Somebody has said, maybe we are already nearing the end, is that perpetual activity leads to bankruptcy. And perhaps we have come to a stage of bankruptcy.
Sir, we time is already 7:33. So
Yeah,
we will
right.
have to
Yes,
end the
we
meeting.
should close. Yeah.
And either I is there or I is absent. Some entity has to understand all the problems, all the pains, and all that. We cannot shun the responsibility. We will have to
Absolutely.
take the responsibility and be with it, face it as much as possible, and
Absolutely,
then we may
sir.
ask questions.
Yeah,
Right, sir.
right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Harshad.
Thank you all the
Thank you.
participants, all the
Thank
speakers.
you, everybody.
Thank you all, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Anandji.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
मुड़क सर क्लोज करें.
हाँ सर, 1 मिनट कर रहा हूँ, उसको क्लोज ही कर रहा हूँ. कई बार क्या होता है कि क्लोज करने में भी